All right. I think we're live. If anyone is listening, push one in the chat. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is open chat number 101. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There'll be a link in the chat if you want to join the discussion. It's a Zoom link. Make sure you have the latest Zoom client before joining. It's pinned to the top now. So let me kind of give a 5-minute, 2-minute elevator pitch on this. We get alerts on things in YouTube when we get tagged on videos and other community tab postings and things of that nature. And so what happened earlier was AB Media happened to at us, tag us in one of these streams or one of these community tab posts. And what ended up happening was AB Media linked to the Revolutionary Blackout channel, which is considered to be a radical left-wing channel. Now, there's been this idea that the Black Brain Trusts are not the real left, right? There's this idea that you're not on the left unless you're calling out Joe Biden, right? And this is a very as much it's a misnomer to say that you're not on the left unless you're doing something that pertains to attacking Joe Biden. Now, my question to AB Media and many of these other folks on that side who want to make these statements is, what is the left? What does that even mean, right? What does it mean to be on the left? Now, we've had AB Media on the panel before, but never really gave us an answer on what the left actually is, right? It's more of a slur in this space to say you're on the left. And my argument has historically been that Black people are the left. Anti-slavery, anti-white supremacy, anti-Jim Crow, anti-apartheid. Okay. Freedom, justice, and equality. Historically speaking. Well, I don't understand why even refer to us as the fake left, when in reality, all of our content has been, pro-civil rights, pro-constitutional rights, pro-labor, pro-economic justice, pro-technocratic. I'm not sure where this, idea comes from that, we're the fake left, right? Or we somehow represent this sort of fraudulent left of a political spectrum. Where does this come from? Because when I ask, what is the left? I don't get any answers from AB Media. Okay. So where are these ideas coming from? Where is this question coming from? I'm interested in hearing what AB Media has to say. he was kind enough to tag us and at us. Why not come up on a panel and actually explain this? And if he can't explain it, the people who support him should come up on a panel and explain it. For whatever reason, the Black Brain Trust has become this sort of, litmus test for political discourse in the manosphere. And we never claim to be experts. We actually just do the research and then present our analysis based on the research, not necessarily hiding behind other people's credentials or taking other people's work and making it our own. We don't actually do that. But what I will say is this: I'm up for debate. Link is in the chat. If anybody wants to defend AB Media, or if AB Media is listening, he wants to get on the panel and kind of explain what the left is, I'd be more than welcome and glad to actually engage. So link is in the chat. If AB Media is listening, he wants to come up, let's talk about it. And you can't point to Chicago as, some kind of example of the left gone wrong, right? Or you can't look at Mayor Eric Adams. This this idea that everything that's wrong with the Black community is an issue with the Democrats, or the Democratic Party, I should say. As if before 1965 things were great. Society was just so much better for Black people before 1964. We need to go back to that time when we were what party at what time? Most older Black people that I have spoken to on and offline have told me greatly that they're not interested in going back to that time. So I always find it interesting that people who can't stand Joe Biden, or can't stand Kamala Harris, or can't stand the Democratic Party, can't stand, the mayors of certain cities, they want to go back to a time when Black people didn't even have the right to vote. And actually, they didn't even have all of their constitutional rights. Okay. All those Black men who served in the military in all the branches were coming home after World War II and being lynched. It was not a great time to be a part of the American society at that time. So they wanted you to fight fascism abroad, but then come home to the very fascism that they were upholding for themselves. And then you have people who are saying we should go back to that time. But who wants to go back to that time, right? Who wants to go back to that time? And so when you say the left, I don't know what they're referring to. I know what the left is historically. Calling out Joe Biden, that's not left. Not liking Kamala Harris, that's not left. Okay. Making YouTube shorts about migrants coming to the United States, not left. So what are you really advocating for at the end of the day? I'm trying to understand the perspective of people who have an axe to grind against either the Black Brain Trust or myself in particular when it comes to politics here. Because it seems like we're always forced to give our analysis, not what you heard or what you you know, can copy and paste from somewhere else. What our analysis is, what was the math that was used? How did we come to the equation that we have or the results that we have? We really haven't been all that wrong on a lot of our predictions when it comes to politics and economics. We really haven't been all that wrong. So I'm waiting on anyone who has the same ideas that AB Media has, or Andre 416, that Canadian Joker himself, can come up here to try and engage in some civil discourse here. All these shots at the Brain Trust for having an analysis from people who have no analysis. Link is in the chat. Anybody can come up here. It's an open chat. Okay. Also, let me touch on this as well. For those who think that our content is boring, you're not going to get any fancy intros and you know random camera angles and you know funny backgrounds and enhancements and stuff like that. Nah, we don't do that here, because you can do all the fancy backdrops and invest on cameras and mics and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, man, we're going to bring the facts to the table. What are the facts? Yeah, facts are boring when you don't have anything to counter it with. Let me share my screen real quick, because I'm not making this up. Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. Let me zoom in. Now, this is AB Media's channel. This is his community tab. And it says, at the Black Brain Trust, you think I'm hard on Joe Biden? Listen to some real leftists. What does that really mean? What does that mean? Let me read the caption really quickly. The left's case against the Democratic Party. Selling out your policy beliefs for Biden is unforgivable. We have to be honest with workers about the Democrats and whatever else that's supposed to mean. Okay. The Democratic Party is dominated by um, three caucuses: the Congressional Black Caucus, one; two, the Progressive Caucus; and three, the Latino Caucus. And then you have several other caucuses like the HBCU caucus. You have um, the I think there's a caucus for Muslims. Um, I think there's like another caucus that they're real minor and down the the totem pole of activity. And so when you say that the left, the left is a movement. It's an ongoing movement. But to try to make it seem like, oh, these guys are some real leftists. But what does that even mean? If you're going to use that, at least qualify that with, some actual background to it, because it doesn't make any sense to me to say that. So I just find these things to be very interesting. I don't have a problem with Revolutionary Blackout. I'm not a fan of their content at all, to be quite frank. Mostly because they don't reflect my views at all. To be quite frank, I'm just not a fan of their content. But I respect their position. Um, I get it. They don't like the Democratic Party, but what else are you going to do? It's a two-party system at the end of the day, and it doesn't. Politics doesn't start and stop with the president. You have other elections that go on. You have you know House and Senate and mayoral races, gubernatorial races. You have city council races. You have school board races, secretaries of states, state auditors. There's various races that go on, throughout the country. And I'm not sure why they only focus on Joe Biden, but don't focus on the actual other candidates that's down ballot. Like, what's the problem here? What's going on, Lou?
Yo, what's up, Mike? What's going on with you, player?
Oh, chilling, bro. What's going on with you?
Oh man, nothing, man. Just man, sitting back. I tapped in. I was listening to. I scrolled back about 10 minutes and wanted to make sure I got the gist of it. You're 100% right. In this space, left is left is definitely a slur, and I know why. It's because it's easy to you know grandstand, yell, scream on the mic, talk about, black women, immigrants, LGBTQ community, marginalized groups, right? It's always a marginalized group that they can attack, but they'll never attack the Republican Party. They'll never attack the right. They'll never challenge any claim or right wing focused news article. They'll never challenge. They'll never attack the status quo. They'll never challenge corporations unless they're engaging in woke activities that they call it, but they'll never actually challenge the economic corporate structure of a corporation and billionaires, never, because it's easier to go at marginalized groups. Now, this talking about the left versus Biden and Democratic Party and all that stuff. I mean, I see. I've been seeing a lot of that stuff. The quote unquote progressives, like, as they claim they are, that we're not voting for genocide, and you know we'll vote for whoever other than Biden. We don't care if Trump gets in, which is kind of insane. It's almost on some like suicide bomber type mentality. Like I said, you can vote for whoever you want to. It's just that the mindset of it is kind of crazy. It's like, okay, man, like Joe Biden is like nowhere near nowhere near as bad as what they're trying to portray. And it's like, dude, you keep talking about the border, then okay, let's talk about this 118th Congress. Let's talk about this ineffective Republican Congress. Why we got to keep talking about Joe Biden and the left? They can't do. They can't. The Constitution was written for compromise. So if you have a side of the aisle that's not willing to compromise and they're just using their platform just to sell trash books and get seen on Newsmax and Fox News and all this other goofy stuff, how can you do not you obviously don't understand how the political process works. You don't understand what's going on. So yeah, that's about what I gathered, Mike, up until I just got home. So correct me anyway if I'm wrong there.
No,
If I'm
no, you're
missing it.
not. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's just you're right about them not calling out the Republicans or the right wing or the conservatives, even though they live in conservative states, even though their whole entire political framework in within where they live is completely dominated by the right wing. Nothing to say about it. But if you ever notice, Lou, the manosphere as a whole doesn't call out white supremacy. It never calls out white males. It only focuses on what they consider to be the left. And so they see Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams, or they see Muriel Bowser or Keisha Lance Bottoms. They see all these people as this big hodgepodge of leftist politics, um, and that somehow they, there's a justification for railing against them, even if they can't articulate what their politic is. They just see the necessity to go after them, but never go after like Josh Hawley, you know, Tom Cotton, all these other people who are working collectively against black men. They don't see any necessity to go after them.
What's that? Tuberville.
Yeah, Tommy Tuberville,
Yeah,
all these,
that touch it.
yeah, all these states that are run by Republicans ripping off black folks. Nothing to say about that.
Nothing to say about it. Got all these Republican states not getting low income, not getting food to low income families over the summer. Denying these pay, the brokest, poor states in the union denying free food to children and low income families. There's no way. Like I said, it's unbecoming of a man to me to just sit in the face of white supremacy and fascism, and you just direct your attention to black women or LGBTQ or immigrant stuff like that. No, people who have absolutely zero control over the power structure. Right. So yeah, it's just it's cowardly. It's cowardly, really.
Yeah,
It's on.
nothing to say about you know um, people being shot in Buffalo while they're grocery shopping. Nothing to say about you know the Patriot was it the Patriot Front? I think that's their
Right.
name. The Patriot Front jumping a black man. Nothing to say about that though.
Nothing.
Jumping
Absolutely.
out of U-Haul trucks and Penske trucks in Philly. Nothing to say about that.
Nope.
I haven't seen a live stream from anybody else in this space other than the Black Brain Trust calling out the wing. We're always at the forefront of calling out right wing attacks and propaganda um within the immediate society. It's just really frustrating to hear someone say, "Oh, like what's being said on the screen right here." Listen to some real leftists, and then nothing to say about what's the guy with one eye on his patch? JD Vance. Nothing to say about these cats.
Nothing at all. And it's like, man, there's so much misinformation and disinformation they spreading. It's yeah, I don't yeah, it says the real left. It's only the real left because they going at the Democratic Party. So then it becomes like anti-democratic party because it's like this a lot of, I hate to say it, but a lot of black conservatives or whoever they claim to be feel dejected from black society, black people.
Mm-hmm.
So they look at the Democratic Party as basically the symbol of that. So if they go against the Democratic Party, it's going against black people in a lot of ways. So it's, you know, they Kamala, they call her Kamala and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? It's like, Jim Crow Joe say all that stuff. And it's like you say all that, but you know, they got actual apartheid going on in like Tennessee, right? Republican state legislators just terrible, right? Just diverting funds. I think I saw it was like they had money for a playground in one of the low income areas of Tennessee, and they used it to build a football stadium in somewhere else that was more white people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
And no one in this space is going to call it out. They'll just keep talking about, um, maternity, paternity fraud bills and stuff getting passed because of the manosphere. It's just like,
and the
you
funny thing
guys,
about that
yeah,
bill, Mike, that bill was in Memphis. It started in a barbershop.
yeah.
There was no, they didn't bring anybody from YouTube to to market their cause. They didn't get on anybody's channel or live stream or ask anybody to shout them out while they was getting the signature because it's already done now. But in the beginning, during those signatures, how can you, you know, I don't know how you can take credit for that. Like they didn't, I mean, it was boots on the ground, grassroots.
Yeah.
I think it's disrespectful to claim that you had something to do with that when them people came, them people union, they galvanized and unionized on the forefront on the ground. That's where it happens at. So, my bad. Go ahead, Mike. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, no, you're right on the money. But I don't have any problem being called out as a channel. If you're willing to come up and um, establish your grounding against what we're saying or who you think we are. Because this statement right here, because he would have said, at the Black Brain Trust, you think I'm hard on Joe Biden, listen to this. But instead he says, listen to some real leftists. Well, by saying that, you're basically framing us as being frauds of the left. But we never really claimed to be on the left because my interpretation of the left is different than what yours is. I know what I think the left is and what my understanding of the left is historically, but what is your framing of the left? What's going on,
Right.
Cyber Supreme?
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? Long time no hear. How's everybody going on this chilly Friday night?
I'm
Oh,
chilling, bro.
chilling, man.
You?
With the politics and the rhetoric of the channel that you're mentioning sounds extremely chilly, to be quite honest. It's interesting. Uh, as a person who was Black Brain Trust from a long time ago, I could definitely tell you and vouch. And I'm not being paid or sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
I could definitely tell whoever is in question, the channel that you're mentioning, the Black Brain Trust doesn't have a 100% consensus on any particular political faction and or party. I myself consider myself to be kind of a middle of the road, traditional conservative. Yet I don't believe in small government. I believe a level of government that's adequate. I'm fairly liberal, yet I do hold true to the staunch principles of being conservative with a penchant for that conservatism having having an impact on whatever is needful. Um, and I don't hate everyone or anyone on the left just because they're on the left. I don't just vouch for someone or anyone simply because they're on the right. Um, so I believe in conservatism with elasticity, and I believed in, um, libertarianism with needful elasticity and a way to meet people on either side to get the job done. Yet I am not an independent. So the gentleman, I guess, or the channel that you're talking about, I don't know if they understand when they make this, when they insert the portion of the sentence that says, "Well, listen to some real leftists." That's rhetoric. That's language. That's saying, "Oh, you all are not leftists." I don't know if they
Mm-hmm.
understand.
Yeah. It's meant to be an insult, I think, or a parting shot. But that doesn't, I don't want to assume what they think the left is. That's why I opened up the open chat because I wanted somebody to come up here and tell us what the left is. Because for all of the bickering in the manosphere, the last 3 years, because we've been having this conversation probably since summer 2019, if not before that. But it really started turning up around 2020 when Biden threw his hat in the ring and all these guys just came out and started supporting Trump. But there was, there was never any real political grounding with these cats before. Now we knew where we stood, and like you said, we never really had a complete consensus on the Black Brain Trust as to where everybody explicitly was. Right? There's some people on the Black Brain Trust who were traditional conservatives, maybe a Reagan conservative, maybe a what do you call it? Evangelical or something like that. You've had different variations of people come through here, and we've had no problems with them. My problem is when you try to frame us as if we're frauds of something that you haven't really articulated. That's why I have a problem, because now it just creates a lot of confusion as to, okay, so who are you talking about and what is it that you're talking about and what exactly is the problem here? Because if you tell me that you support a 17-point agenda by a PhD in the space, and then we look over the documentation and we see that most of this stuff is very much left-leaning, if not completely left, how can you support that, have disdain for us or even critique for us, and then point to these folks here as real leftists?
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
the math ain't mathing.
Because you know what really don't add up, but you said either, right? It's like, how can you have 13-point agendas for Black men, platinum plan? I can hold that all in high regard, right? But once Supreme Court knocks down affirmative action, now you're cheering affirmative action is going. You're happy, you're dancing, you're doing the two-step, all this goofy shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you think you're going to Black women because you think Black men ain't going to college. I don't know, right? But it's just, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was disagreeing with you, but the thing here is most of the PhDs in this space benefited greatly from affirmative action to get themselves through college.
Exactly. Like
and get tenure.
It's ridiculous. So it's like, how can you claim, you're supporting, and they never have a right-wing policy. They never have anything from Trump that it was actually tangible, because it's like, they talk about tax cuts. Okay, but you got an extra $150 on your check every month. I mean, every other check. You're missing the point. Now we have a tax deficit now. And now we're, the poor people already taxed to hell. I'm just, they talk about tax cuts like it was tax cuts for them. No, it's not. It was for corporations. It wasn't for you. You got it, and then. Go ahead.
No, you had to be making $1 million+ in order to get those tax benefits.
And then the tax cuts that were for regular people had an expiration date on it.
Yeah. So
you're going right back to the same tax code under Obama that you could have had already. You just didn't see what was going on. So I just said it to say that they always got smoke for. What you say?
No, I was saying you hit it on the head. That's a very exclusionary, subtle premise that everybody obviously isn't going to qualify for, and yet you can't pitch something like that in the public eye as if it's for everybody. When you peel the onion layers back, like you said, there's a fiscal requirement that you have to meet to get the tax cuts. They have an expiry on them. Everybody doesn't fit that, so then you have to ask, well, you can't. How can you build that for America, a tax cut that's exclusionary in nature with an expiry? Everyone doesn't qualify for it, And I think, again, just listening to the conversation, you just have to tune in tonight. The other channel that you're speaking about, I'd be curious if they are going to come to the chat or if they're going to come onto the panel. They're making the Black Brain, one person or one view that they've probably heard of somebody on, Black Brain Trust They're making it out to be unilateral for everyone else when that's totally not the case. I would say again, just to assert my position as a conservative, I'm not real big on the tax cuts things, and I have money, but it's just like, I think anything that conservatives I feel need to be pushing and championing along with Democrats or the left, we really need to be championing a wholesome, honest, detailed, thorough review of foreign policy. Because I think a lot of things flow from there, but that's just my opinion.
Well,
All right.
let me elaborate on that, because I think the problem in this space is the difference between foreign policy and domestic policy.
Yes.
It's not as if it's not like, oh, well, if the Houthis would stop, hitting those cargo vessels in the Horn of Africa, people in Jackson, Mississippi would have some clean water. If we stop sending, Patriot missile batteries to Kiev, that somehow would improve Black men's conditions on Skid Row. It's not that simple. There's no correlation between the two either, right? It's not like, oh, if we stop sending money to Israel, that's going to somehow improve the conditions for people in Chicago with those extendos on them. Like, what are we talking about here?
It's quite complex. Quite complex.
Is that Nagone? Go ahead, Nagone. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's up, guys? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, I mean, I just look at, when we really are talking about here so much, we are really talking deeply about domestic policy. Why most Black people, and when we've looked at Black people from the historical perspective, have been progressive, is because we have to look at policies that are going to actually help us to do better here in this country. And we're going to go forward with policies that tend to aid and abet us. And that's why we're involved in politics. Staunch right-wing conservatism here in this country is anti-Black. It's anti-Blackness. And there are no policies that they've brought forward that have aided and abetted Black people positively here in this country. And if you say that they are, I challenge you to name them. So quite frankly, that is a part of it. The Black community has been, by itself and by its nature, conservative with respect to its religious beliefs, how Black people actually look at their own individual lives with respect to spending and so forth, very much the same way. Also a reverence for the elderly and older people, and where older people more or less have, some level of what they would consider knowledge and so forth, and they would be deferred to more, if you will. These are very much, qualities of the Black community that are very much naturally in how we have come about as African Americans here in this country as being conservative. But when we look at things fiscally and politically conservative, we certainly don't benefit from that, because the conservative agenda is anti-Black. So, the bottom line very simply here is when, we have to kind of understand a lot of that. When we talk about the leftists and so forth, what's on the left, what exactly are these people actually talking about? And what are they actually specifically, how would I say, specifically identifying and speaking against? Most of these people that I see here in this space who talk, they're conservatives or whatever, most of them, as I say, that I hear, it's very much what we call them Tisha conservatives. So it's anti-Black female, and this is going to be strictly just for Black males and this, that, and not understanding, okay, fair enough. I understand that we have our issues with some of the functionality or dysfunctionality of Black women, no question about it. But where are the policies and so forth specifically for Black men that, let's say, the conservatives and so forth are going to push for it, like the 17-point agenda and others that are fundamentally more of a how would I say, almost a leftist or a progressive agenda. So who is going to be best fit to push that as well? So, these are the questions, we have to sit down and look at and kind of analyze and think somewhat critically about. We don't see that from that side. And those who are calling themselves per se conservatives don't seem to be able to answer and address those issues cogently, politically. Well, I don't see it. I myself very deeply ensconced in the political in politics, very deeply involved. Understand the process extraordinarily well. I see nothing coming from that side, and what it really tells me, for more of anything else, they're not going to do anything. These are a group of people that are not going to do shit. They're not going to help one iota to do anything, and try to sit back and just glom, but talk, but do nothing. In actuality, do nothing. And that's, I think, what we have, the do nothing crew, doing a lot of talk and zero analysis, and actually really helping to move the needle forward in a very much a zero type of way. And that's that's what I see. Nothing else.
Let me play this. Let me share my screen and play this clip, because I've been sitting on this for quite some time. Let me know you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Roland Martin.
All right. Let me play this clip about paternity fraud in the state of Tennessee. There's been a lot of talk about the manosphere having its impact on public policy, domestic policy, recently. So let's hear what the actual state rep has to say.
From the Tennessee Department of Human Services. Tennessee Representative Antonio Parkinson is sponsoring the House version of the bill. He says the bill will help those men forced to pay child support after finding out the child was not biologically theirs. He joins us right now. He's also chair of the Tennessee Black Caucus. Glad to have you back on the show. So this is kind of basic. How in the hell can you be paying for a child? It ain't yours.
Yeah, we think it's basic. So let me throw this out there first. 1/3 of the signatures on birth certificates today are not the biological father. Think about that. That's a huge number. 33%. 33% of the people that have signed a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity are not the actual father. Now, here's the rub. That means that there are 33% of real biological fathers whose children have been stolen from them through this voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program. I lean on the side that I think most fathers want to be in their children's lives. So that 33% has been robbed legally, state-sponsored, of the opportunity to be a parent to their children. Think about that.
So how does it work? That is, like, who decides to write in the father portion?
So anybody can sign a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity as long as the mother is okay with it. The only thing that they have to do is sign it in front of a notary, but there are no guardrails that would ensure that this person is actually the biological father.
So is your position that whoever is actually the biological father, they should be notified that they're the father? But where does but what happens though if you are someone and you've been told it's yours, and here you are forced to pay child support, then you find out it's not yours?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I got on this situation. I had a young man stop me in the barbershop, and he said, I thought I had a child with a lady that I was in a long-term relationship with. We went to juvenile court. When her mother told me that she'd been with her ex-boyfriend the whole time, I got a DNA test, went to juvenile court. The juvenile court magistrate banged the gavel down, said somebody's got to feed him, and it's going to be you. And he was stuck with that child support. Not just that, but he walked out of that court in arrears because they went back to the birth of the child. And when he did
Wait, hold on. They're in court. they established he is not the biological father, and the judge still said you got to pay?
The judge still said you got to pay. And the way this thing works is this. When you voluntarily sign, you got 60 days to take your name back off of there. And I had a person to come to me and say, well, he could always ask the lady for a DNA test. I said, well, okay, let's talk about that. You're in the hospital. You know, probably the grandparents are around, the other siblings. You're in there with the lady and she's holding her new bundle of joy and you're in a relationship with this person. And so you're going to turn around and say, hey, oh yeah, by the way, I want to get a DNA test. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Your relationship is over with at that point. If the DNA results come back, say you are the father, your relationship is over with. If the DNA test comes back, say you're not the father, your relationship is over with. And so that's not reality, right? And I had a young man, I've gotten more calls about this than any other bill I've passed, right? I had a young man call me today. He said, I was 19 years old and I was in the hospital, all her family's around, and there was no way that I could ask for a DNA test. No way, right? And so what we're doing is making it required only to validate your name on that birth certificate. So what we're saying is this: you can still voluntarily sign, but you have to produce DNA results that say you are the actual father so that your name can be validated on that birth certificate.
So who is paying for that? So is that going to be the state? Is that going to be the individual? So how's this thing going to work out? That when a child is born, are they going to take the DNA at that moment? I mean, so what's going to actually happen?
So this is how it works. So, and I got to give you a little background for you to understand this. Per Health and Human Services in DC, they say the states have to have 3 ways of acknowledging paternity. 3 ways. One is voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program. And that's for people that want to sign. And this is who we're targeting, right? Then you have DNA tests for contested births, ones that didn't want to sign, right? Then you have the fact that people are married. So it's automatically presumed by law that the father in a marriage is the father of the child. But we're focusing on voluntary acknowledgement, the ones that want to voluntarily sign. They feel like, or have been told, maybe by the mother, or had been led to believe that they are the father of this child, right? And so they want to sign. And we don't have a problem with that. You can want to sign and sign. But the process will not be complete until you produce the results of the DNA saying that you are the actual father. Because if that DNA test comes back and says you're not the father, then it's paternity fraud for you to sign on there. And if that DNA test comes back and says you are the father, then it will be validated. But think about this though, and this is the angle I'm coming from on this, not to fault women or anybody else, but I believe that if you are a father by DNA, you deserve the right, you have the right to be a parent to your child legally. This under the law right now, they are taking that right away from the actual biological parent by not having safeguards in place to make sure it's the biological parent that gets that right. Because once you sign, you are the legal parent of that child.
Questions from my panel. Jeff?
I want to make sure I hit
there
that.
You go.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm here. Thanks, Representative Parkinson, down the street from you in Nashville. Man, it's good to see you here. Know a lot of people who talk about the work that you're doing. Congratulations. Listen, there are tons of stories that you're saying.
Oh my God.
As a pastor, I have tons of people. I had a gentleman come years ago. He spent 19 years paying child support, and got into an argument with who was his wife at the time, and that was when she revealed that it wasn't his and there was nothing he could do. There are tons of stories like this. Let me ask you about the state and the federal complex here around this, because when people say, well, it's about just getting a DNA test or not, there's an entire court system involved. Tell me about this. There's a 40% match that the state or the federal government gets from circumstances like this. Can you talk about that so that people can know that this is bigger than just a few people taking a DNA test?
Thank you for the alley-oop that felt like an alley-oop anyway. But I need Roland to understand. Roland, thank you for this platform, because you are breaking a major story nationally with this.
Yes.
Think about it. People ask me, well, why is the Department of Human Services fighting you so hard on this bill? They are throwing the kitchen sink at me to stop this bill from passing. Well, here's the reason. They get paid for people to blindly sign on a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity. Three things that's happening. They're chasing a 90% quota of acknowledged births in the state. They get millions of dollars for reaching that 90% quota, and then get a bonus of more millions for surpassing that 90% quota. What would happen if a person sees the DNA test and say, hey, whoa, not mine? They're not going to sign. So that quota may be in jeopardy. Second piece, they also get $52 million here in the state of Tennessee to have a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program in place. This money goes to child support enforcement programs. Then thirdly, for every single child support order, they receive a 40% match from the federal government. So it's state-sponsored. Think about what I'm saying. This is state-sponsored child theft, paternity fraud, however you want to call it, but they are literally taking children from some biological fathers.
Let's go. Crystal, your question.
I want to say good to see you, Representative Parkinson. Also,
hey, friend.
Touche. That's what we call him down in Memphis. But I want to ask a question just from the female perspective. I think a lot of what you're talking about, men experience these hardships because they, agree to something that they obviously were misled or tricked or whatever the case may be. But are there any, is there any kind of legislative tools you can use so that women will be discouraged from doing this in the future? Meaning that if I am asking a man to sign my child's birth certificate knowingly, with the knowledge that he is not the father, and then, it comes out later, 19 years as Carr just stated, or in the case that you brought up, years or months later, what are the repercussions for women? Like, what are the repercussions for the woman who acted egregiously in this manner? So I'm just curious, like, what can be done? And then are there any legislative tools that can be put in place in our state legislature to ensure that this doesn't happen again, that women will stop doing this and men will be better informed, obviously, but also and I'm not saying every woman has done this and does this intentionally, but there are some bad actors out there. And so I'm just curious, what can be done?
Interesting. The majority of the support in regards to this legislation is coming from women. So
I'm sorry. What did he say? Let's go back on that. Let's talk about that.
I'm just curious, what can be done?
Interesting. The majority of the support in regards to this legislation is coming from women. So
I thought that it was 17-point agendas and PhDs that were responsible for this. I thought it was the Black Manosphere.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember we talked about it, man. I always proposed it. I said, can y'all name one policy that Black women have gotten together that negatively affected Black men? And they can never bring one. There are none. So it's like,
according to the state rep, the majority of support came from Black women, or came from women. He represents the Black district. So what happened, all this time we were on these panels and we were hearing, Tennessee and Maryland, it's because of the Black Manosphere, it's because of PhDs, it's because of the work of the Black Manosphere. Remember we was on those panels and we heard all of that. What happened? This brother, it just came out of his mouth. Let me play it again.
Actors out there. And so I'm just curious, what can be done?
Interesting. The majority of the support in regards to this legislation is coming from women. So I would say 99.9% of the people who have contacted me about this legislation, most of them are women, and
most of them are women.
So that's very interesting. So here's my comment real quick on it.
Mhm.
If it's okay. So first and foremost, I want to make sure I don't come from an emotional standpoint as a male who would inherently have bias to the situation. I think that men as a whole, we have to be responsible and responsibly minded when we're in relationships that traverse in this direction to where you end up having a kid. And, because one of the things that caught me when he opened up was that the scenario when you're in the hospital, but everything's questionable and you've got that burning question in your gut, but you can't let truth out in that, hey, I just want to be sure. I want to verify that everything is everything. Well, because kinfolk are around, you can't speak and be in truth when there is a possibility that there could be no truth in the situation. I think, again, men, we just have to be responsible and responsibly minded and try to teach the same to others, to do the same when we're in these situations, number one. Number two, I'm very curious to know, it's not, my wife was sitting here listening before she went back in the room. And I said, it's because of money. And he came right out and said, it's because of money, because it's state sponsored. So we see where the dollars are there.
Yep.
Number three, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, finish up your last point so I can finish point.
And number three, I'm very curious as to whether or not that percentage of women, who is that made up of? Would that be mothers or aunts or older women of men who are in this situation? That's what I would like to know. That statistic or that metric.
Let's hear it from him.
And 99.9% of them were tremendously in favor of this legislation. Let me answer your last question first. If we enact this bill, it kills any paternity fraud because we will know on the front end. And I want you to think about something. An individual that's going through this has gone through multiple traumas, including their child. Like in the case of the guy that brought this to me first, the child was 5 years and 1 month old. And so when he brought it to juvenile court, he was 1 month past the 5-year statute of limitation to rescind his voluntary acknowledgement of paternity. And so think about what happened. You got the trauma of the grandmother telling you that your girlfriend wasn't faithful. Then you got the trauma of the DNA test that comes back that you're not this kid's father and you've been raising this kid for 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. Saw this kid being birthed. Then you have the trauma of the magistrate saying, nope, you're stuck and you're going to be paying for child support until this child ages out. Then the trauma of he lost his license because they were enforcing. He couldn't get caught up. He was riding dirty, got pulled over, got sent to jail. When he went to jail, he was in jail for about 3 or 4 days, lost his job. And he had another child that was his biological child that he was supporting. This man's life was turned completely upside down when it could have simply been fixed on the front end. Yep. But now, the state of Tennessee Department of Human Services wants it to continue. And that's crazy because lives are being affected by this situation when it's a simple fix. Just find out and make sure that this is the actual father and take it out of the father's hand. Make it mandatory. And so he doesn't have to ask for it. I think it would actually encourage more people to voluntarily acknowledge and sign because they know a DNA test is coming with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Omekongo, your question.
Yeah, I've been kind of bug-eyed throughout this whole segment because I was just completely unaware. So this is really a breaking story. The question that I have is, first of all, thank you for your efforts on this. I'm wondering, are you hearing anything from the actual biological fathers, the ones who didn't get an opportunity to sign the certificate? Is there pushback from them, or are they in support of this? What kind of feedback are you getting? I'm sure many of them may not even know, but for the ones who do, are you hearing from them?
Most of the people that I know, most of the men that I know that have any involvement in this situation want to be a father to the children.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel so bad for that person that did not get the opportunity, either because the woman did not tell them that they were possibly a father. But let me tell you about this phone call that I got on my way from Memphis to Nashville today. This lady, she's older than I am, and she called me. She said, "Thank you for running this legislation." And she went on to explain this to me. "I just met my father because they kept it from me and told me that my stepfather was my father all of my life. I met my father. The reason I met my father was because he is right now going through treatment for, I forgot what kind of cancer it was that he has." She said, "If I would not have met him, I would not have known that I am high risk for this cancer. And now I'm being screened." Think about that.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. And state sponsored. They are encouraging people to blindly sign because they are motivated by money.
Mm-hmm.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars that are churning from Health and Human Services in DC, right? And they are, what the state of Tennessee is doing is loosely interpreting the regulations from Health and Human Services to say that if we add a DNA test, we will be out of compliance and lose this money. But it has been told to me by an HHS attorney that the federal government only lays out the minimum requirements for your voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program. Everything else is left up to the states. The feds never said what a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity program looks like. They just said it needs to include this, and that's it. And so the states have the ability to make their program what they want it to be. But again, we can reach this 90% quota if we just get all people signing, regardless of whether or not they're the father or not. Unbelievable.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Folks, I appreciate it. Representative Parkinson, thank you so very much. Keep us abreast of how this bill goes through committee and through the legislature.
Thank you. Thank you for the platform, Roland. Appreciate you, brother.
Not a problem. Thanks a lot, folks.
All right. So there you have it from Antonio Parkinson, Tennessee State Rep, who elaborated greatly how this went down, who was involved. Did anybody?
Republican. He was a Republican, right?
I thought he was a Democrat, but I could be wrong on that. But last time I checked, he was a Democrat. But
no, I was just pulling your leg.
Oh, you're a fool, man. I didn't hear anything about Black manosphere. I heard women were the drivers behind this. But this is coming straight from the Tennessee State Rep himself.
But Mike, here's the funny thing, Mike. I mean, if you're taking credit for it, that means you should know the status of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been passed into law.
Right.
So how can you say, you know what I'm saying? How can you claim that you helped it happen and it didn't happen?
I think they're maybe just claiming that it's like the intellectual property. They're trying to say they're the generators of the idea. They just didn't put it into practice.
All right.
Yeah, well, no different than Thomas Edison, and Lewis Latimer, I had an idea about. Yeah, I had an idea. Manosphere plagiarism is definitely in full effect. What's going on, the Equalizer?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? Good evening.
Good evening. What have you heard so far, and what's your take so far on this?
Well, with Tennessee, because I haven't, actually gone on their site and read any potential bills, so I can't speak factually on Tennessee, but I was listening. So, I mean, if that's what they're saying, that is what it is. I mean, I can search it myself and figure it out. But I do know about Maryland because I live near Maryland. I don't live in Maryland, but they did pass the bill, Senate Bill 410, last year, effective October 2023. So I mean, I can read it verbatim. When a child is born at the healthcare facility, the attending physician shall offer the presumed father of the child the option to take a paternity test to establish paternity of the child. The offer to take the paternity test shall be made orally and in writing, and before a birth certificate form is completed for the child. The presumed father may waive the right to take the paternity test or elect to take the paternity test at any time before the completion of the birth certificate form for the child. This subtitle does not apply if the attending physician is unable to contact the presumed father of the child. Section 2, which I just read, will be further enacted. This act shall take effect October 1st, 2023. So, I mean, it is changing in Maryland. That I know for a fact, as I just read.
Well, this interview is from a year ago, so this is already have taken action already. I'm only playing it as a reference because I'm only playing it as a reference because it's been stated numerous amount of times in this space the last couple months or so that it's because of the manosphere that this is taking place, and the Tennessee State Rep greatly disagrees with this based on his own testimony that the majority of support came from women, nothing to do with the Black manosphere.
And
yeah.
What I was going to quickly say too, Mike, the other thing, and I dropped this in the chat, was the manosphere kind of claims that that these are conservative men, who in the way they're operating, and he said specifically this bill was focused towards men who were not married, unmarried fathers at the time of child's birth. So something a little bit's not adding up here. Like I'm confused if this is if these are these strong family values, conservative men, and this bill is not even really addressing them.
Well, I would say across the board, man, a lot of men just aren't aware. Or, I mean, in this day and age, in the information age, in my opinion, there's really no excuse because you got a freaking computer in your hand. You can literally go on the state website because these are all state laws, and you can read the shit for yourself. But most guys, they're not aware until it's too late. That's unfortunately that's the average. They're not like myself where I'm gonna fucking read that shit before I even talk to an attorney. So yeah, I mean, he is correct. What I think
I'm just pointing out too that when he highlighted in the video of the bill that as he said, the push came from women, and that they were particularly focused on the first group, which was unmarried men. They said for married men they weren't too much focused on it. That the assumption is if they're married, then that the child is theirs.
Which makes sense. Again, this goes to the legality of the state. Obviously, if you're married, I mean, they just automatically presume that you're the father. I mean, that's pretty standard, virtually everywhere in the country. Obviously, when you're not married, that's a different ball game. Now it goes down to if it's a common law state, if you guys live together, all this other stuff. So yeah, I mean, that does make sense. And yeah, women will typically rally to do those things. So again, in my opinion, it goes back to the guys, in my opinion, just for the most part being lazy, but understanding their environment. And these things can get pushed. I mean, typically, you can get something pushed for about $50,000 to get their attention and get enough guys to sign off on it. But I guess guys don't want to do that. That's just my assumption.
I don't know if $50,000 is what was used here.
No, not there. Not there.
I think we throw money or perceive that throwing money at a situation is going to solve it. From what Shonda H has said in the chat, this was a part of the MRAs on the ground in Tennessee. And so when you have people in the space say, well, it's because of the Black manosphere, it's because of PhDs, I'm like, well, wait a second here. There's no verification on this. Let's hear straight from the Tennessee State Rep's mouth himself. And he's actually a Democrat. He's the head of the Tennessee Black Caucus. And so when people say, oh, Democrats don't do anything, well, actually, it was a Democrat that did something.
So that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, what is the Black manosphere supposed to do?
And there's not
I'm
one
with it.
footnote, and there's not one footnote to the Black Manosphere on that whatsoever. Not
No.
one.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They didn't. Yeah, he didn't ask any Black Manosphere channel to promote the bill whatsoever.
No, he
No,
actually gave all the credit to Roland. He said you're breaking news on the biggest bill to be passed on this. And so I take it as that's, if anything, Roland Martin is the one that's breaking this, not anybody else. I don't see any other channels really talking about it. I don't see Jason Black talking about it. I don't see Phil the Advise show. He didn't go to Phil the Advise show. That's what I'm saying. Like, people are trying to appropriate blame on party and not understand political ideology
no,
versus
Mike.
party. Yeah, go ahead.
What's their end game, though?
Mike also. No. It's happening behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
You're behind the scenes guys. We know what we're talking about right here. We know who we're talking about. Oh yeah, so we're doing this behind the scenes. Yeah, right.
Go ahead, Cyber Supreme.
No, I was just saying. I guess what I'm struggling with is, the Black Manosphere seems to be pretty thirsty about endorsing this, but it's like, what do they stand to gain from, as you correctly put, this misappropriation, when there's no inroads that they have any representation for this thing? I mean, it's clear. I mean, what are they after?
It's about clout. It's all about clout. It's nothing but a clout chase. And when you have to do all of that just for the notoriety of it, people are going to start to pick apart some of the ideas and some of the talking points that come across. Because even based on this Tennessee State Rep Parkinson, doesn't mention anything about the space at all. And then you still have people still pushing that, like, oh yeah, no, that's true. That's true. They're getting up on the panel and they, co-signing things that's just like complete misinformation. And I'm like, well, if we're going to be the Black Manosphere, there has to be consensus on information. Is this true or is it not true? Because we both can't claim the same space and then have complete inaccuracies in information. That's unacceptable. You can never go to your boss. I mean, you work in IT, Cyber Supreme.
Cybersecurity in specific. Go ahead with it, brother. I know where you're going.
Yeah, I work in cybersecurity too. If I went to my boss and I told my boss that, we don't have any vulnerabilities, we're all at zero. Are you kidding me?
Did you scan? Did the scan happen?
You need receipts.
Yeah.
You need receipts in the story.
Yeah. Well, did you check the logs? There's a variety of ways that they're going to press you on accuracy of information. The problem I see in this space collectively is that there's a willingness to spread misinformation. That's a choice. That is a complete choice. You're taking a hard line to say, we're responsible for a bill that this brother just came out and said had majority women support on the ground.
I'm confused too. Like, is anyone even in the Manosphere even based in Tennessee? I mean,
oh, you got Platinum Elite.
I mean, ABL, I guess, but he's not the Manosphere. I mean, I'm confused on how you got a bill in a state legislature without being in that state and not having any ground.
I think the issue is,
proxy.
This is online, right? So there's really no standard, and understanding being a professional. I mean, that's having a standard is, it's just automatic. So, I don't think a lot of the guys are used to that. And I mean, it's not entertaining speaking about facts. Not that I'm agreeing with that, but that's my observation.
Mm-hmm. You gonna say something, Lou?
It just kind of slipped my mind.
Go ahead,
I would say, facts. You're going against facts against feelings, facts against narratives.
Yeah.
people are running a narrative, and that's feel good. It's almost like a crack cocaine or something else like that. But when we get to the facts, it runs counter to what the narrative that they're trying to push. So people don't want to deal with facts. Many of these people don't want to deal with history. The history irritates them, makes them like, oh, the history is going to get you upset. Why even go over that? I mean, that's the kind of thinking that you do have. So, we're counter to that. They can't counter that. They cannot counter that. What they can say is try to say a lot of crazy, ridiculous things, but they cannot counter the facts. And we're going to stick to that here because it's very important. We can certainly disagree on let's say this, maybe how to move forward with certain kinds of in certain kind of ways. That's
Absolutely.
But the facts are the facts, and that's what a lot of these people don't want to deal with, and I get why they don't, but I have no respect for it at all. But anyway, go ahead.
Go ahead, Equalizer.
No,
that wasn't me.
Oh, yeah, that was me. No, you good. I just remembered it. So, do you guys remember that stream I did a while ago? And I was talking about this right wing push on Black social media.
Yeah,
like you got like Charlemagne basically just giving out right wing talking points. You got all these conservatives on YouTube. You got like all these like just it's like a concerted effort to get like they're being paid to spread a lot of misinformation like Shade Room, Spiritual World, all these just trash blog pages that are directed toward Black people. They're spreading misinformation. They're spreading misinformation, disinformation, and it's a problem, And
I don't know if they're getting paid though, Lou. I don't know if they're getting paid. I don't know if they like, for example, DJ Academics got a bag. That's well known that he got $1 million bag to be on that other platform, Rumble. Right, but I can't say that Phil the Advice Show is getting a bag out of this because it's not materializing, right? It's just like
the bag. Here's the bag though, Mike. The bag is they can always have content because if they're Black and going at the Democratic Party and going at quote unquote leftist ideas, they'll always have something to talk about because they're not gonna because Republicans don't have shit to talk about, right? There's no policy they can talk about. The only way they can really just get views is just being trollish and getting Black people angry and stuff, stuff like that.
Trolling,
trolling, right? Exactly.
But that's the new bag, yeah.
Well, but I mean, too, Mike, is like, even with that, I mean, when you start talking about, the guys that they're kind of targeting, I mean, once again, this is a very unique demographic. I mean, I'd wager to bet the majority of people in the manosphere don't vote. So I mean, or don't do so consistently, somebody own admission. So I'm just like, you're really swinging at a demographic that's not really politically engaged. I mean, a lot of Black men who are actually going to be politically engaged that you probably actually want to get at are not going to be hanging out in the manosphere all day.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, going to those type of places as a source for politics. I mean, come on, man. It's not C-SPAN. That's not congressional House meetings. I mean, that's where I look. So I mean, just look at the crowd, man. That just tells you, who they're marketing to. So I mean, it's again for me, it's not a surprise. But
well, the thing here is if the idea is that the manosphere is going to be this sort of
push an envelope.
Well, no. Basically. Well, the idea here is that the manosphere is going to have this sort of huge social impact on the ground and be so effective at moving crowds and whatnot. Because that's what's been said the last few months. In fact, it's been said for quite some time that the manosphere is going to be this sort of front runner to all male spaces and all things political for men, because they're supposedly the most aggressive at social discourse.
Okay.
Right,
but based on the testimony from the Tennessee state rep, based on some of the some of the actions that we've seen just in the last year or so, just in the last 90 days. I don't think the manosphere is ready to be going at, let's say Roland Martin. Because for me, this is my opinion, if you can't get past the Black Brain Trust, I think you're going to have a very difficult time going outside the space. Roland Martin has dropped the link for a lot of these guys last year, and every time they get up on the panel, they got torn out the frame. And so what are we really going to be doing as a space, right? There's no consensus as to, okay, these are the ideas that we have. Let's flesh them out. Every time we try to have a conversation about politics, people say, well, I'm not interested in domestic politics. But if you're not interested in domestic politics, then how are you going to be effective on the ground?
I want to refer to something Nagone said that I heard him say briefly.
Mm-hmm.
And I pose it as a question. Nagone keenly said qualified when he was referring to the conservative faction. My question is, who do you or who do we believe is qualified from a manosphere perspective to even stand in this context? Because that should be the first thing, like you said, verified. But who's qualified to really stand in that ring, let alone talk about it?
As far as a conservative?
No. I was taking what you said and migrating that over to the template of where we are now with this context, is that, the manosphere wants to so much have a onus or a stake in this, but it's like, okay, let's say we give you that. Who among you is qualified to stand in this? And I think, what I'm hearing is that what I'm seeing is that there's really no one qualified, because if there were, we wouldn't have a hard time, or there wouldn't be a hard time identifying somebody who is not bashful with championing or mentioning in that. Instead of just talking about it and pointing to it, no, which one of you are qualified and connected to this, or can connect yourself to this? I think it's anybody.
Okay. I don't think that is. When we look at the manosphere, we're not looking at one person that really represents, say, the manosphere. The manosphere tends to be more of a group of Black men where we have kind of come together, where it's a loose confederation where we don't have one person who actually represents it. So we have, quite a few people who represent the manosphere. I would say certainly people that kind of represent the manosphere a lot more and speak a lot more to men's issues are the Black Brain Trust. So I would certainly put us as very much first amongst the equals. If you're going to ask me that question, that's going to be part of that answer. But certainly there are going to be others in this space who will be able to speak to that as well. Our issues tend to be rather multifaceted, so we can look at things from the standpoint of issues of relationships, and then we can move towards certainly the political angle, finance, all of these things that impact Afro-American men and African men of the diaspora that come in here, that come in here into the space. So there's a lot of diversity. My biggest issue when we really talk about being manosphere is speak about the issues that are very key to what affects us as men and be truthful and factual about it. Be very factual about it. If you say you're a conservative, I'm a conservative, and you understand what conservatism is, but yet you want to speak about how that is going to affect and forward Afro-American men's and Black men's interests, as far as that is concerned, break it down, bring up good examples, talk factually about it, and we'll roll with that. Okay, and bring good ideas and have this relatively flushed out. That's what this conglomeration is kind of about. There's not one individual. What bothers me is the lack of discipline with respect to facts, the true story, and speaking to the true issues, and understanding truly what our issues are and how to kind of somewhat address them realistically. And you got to be factual about that. That's my big issue. that I actually have. A lot of these guys say, well, you're against me because I am on the right. No, man, I'm thinking, I may have my issues with certain things about the right, but certainly if you understand what the right is about, understand where you stand in that, and are factual about it, we can certainly have those conversations. Because you have to remember, the Black community has never been monolithic in its thinking. We've never been a monolith. So that's not the issue. The issue is, what are we talking about and what are we being factual about here? That's my issue. So we have a lot of people who could actually speak for the manosphere, if you will, but be very truthful and be very open and honest about that. And that's not what we're seeing a lot of here. And that's a lot of our criticism. And we, as the Black Brain Trust and other channels like this, are dedicated more to standing on that square.
Equalizer?
No, I'm listening. I didn't say anything.
Okay. No, it's just that
No, I think what he said is fair. I think it's fair. I don't see a problem with that, personally.
Yeah. No, I think that there has to be some kind of checks and balances in the space in terms of information that's put out to try to verify the legitimacy of it. As we saw earlier in the stream, in the onset of the stream, vote blue no matter who. But if you support a 17-point agenda, where do you think that's going to be passed at? You think that's going to be passed on the right, or you think it's going to be passed on the left? It can't be you're against the left, vote blue no matter who, anti-rhetoric, and then turn back around and posit a 17-point agenda in our face. It's not, the math ain't mathing. The math is not mathing.
The bottom line is, let's look at the facts and let's be honest about certain things, and then have a productive conversation over that. The people here who are blindly obfuscating many facts and are trying to pass off their lies and interpretations, false interpretations, as truths. And this is something that we have to get past.
Yeah.
We are not going to let a lot of that happen. Period. That's the bottom. We're not going to let that happen. I remember when a gray boy came into the space some years ago, and he wanted to come here and talk about how white boys were superior in intellect, and going to come here into the manosphere and talk crazy when we know what the facts are. I had to tear him out the frame. There were those who were mad about me about that. But you're not going to come into this manosphere not around proud Afro-American men, many of us well-educated, doing very well here, whose families bled, died, and bequeathed much of this existence with their blood. You're going to come here and tell us what we are? No, I'm going to send you back to that fucking cave you crawled out of, and don't ever come through here again. That's part of us defending what we are. We have to consistently do that. As a man, you have to consistently justify and fight for your space. That is part of what you are. You're not going to get around that. So I have no problem with that. Let us fight and let us have our disagreements, however that is. That's fine. I'm good with it. But let's be honest and let's be truthful about what those facts are. And this is specifically for Black men. We are a group that is fetishized, feared, attacked, and under all that, we still move with great success, contrary to popular belief. All right? Many of us have kids, sons. We're going to move forward. A lot of this conversation is very important. Yeah. And we have to be very honest about it. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to get on the soapbox. I'm done.
No, I mean, some cats in this space might need some soap, man, with some of the shorts they be doing. It's just like, 2024 has to be the delineation point of where we start and stop, the misinformation, as well as some of the ambiguity of not taking a side. You know, there's a lot of folks in this space like, man, I ain't taking no side. You can't make me take a side, but I support 17-point agendas. Well, which side is that on? Because I can tell you right now, with all this anti-DEI policies and anti-DEI rhetoric coming from Elon Musk and Bill Ackman and Ed Bloom and some of these other right-wing extremists, that ain't passing in the majority of those states. Not even one of them. Not even one agenda on there. Republicans allegedly met with Ice Cube and they didn't take anything from that contract with Black America. If that's not passing, if they're not even getting heard, how do you explain a 17-point agenda getting heard? And who are you talking to at the end of the day? That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of fanciful ideas that are propagated in this space that, you know, I think that needs to be checked. There needs to be a reality check. Any other closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask if the Black Brain Trust was the standard or leading the space, how would you go about administering the standard or various standards for the space?
I think that I think if you claim to be Black manosphere and you hold a certain position, you have to be able to defend that position through and through, from soup to nuts. And no one is right or wrong on their position, but you have to be able to defend that position. That should be, to me, that's the litmus test. Like Cyber Supreme was saying, we've had many conversations on the Black Brain Trust where we've disagreed with each other. Okay, we've had we can go back offline conversations where we've had fire debates and been in complete disagreement with each other. But we actually defend our positions. That's the thing. In this space here, if you claim to be Black manosphere, you have to be able to defend that position. Because if you can't defend it here, how are you going to defend it outside of the space? I mean, there's been several people who have gone over to like Roland Martin and some of these other channels. Link get dropped, they jump on the panel, don't know what they're talking about because they're regurgitating misinformation that they heard from some other content creator, and they get torn out the frame. And then people, like Black Power Media, they go in on the Black manosphere because they've listened to the content for the last couple of years and they pick it apart, and you can't disagree with what they're saying because their analysis is pretty spot on. That a lot of this is this, the platform has become a disinformation platform, and the rhetoric has become misinformation, and unfortunately, it can't be substantiated on any sort of college campus or any academy anywhere within this country or on the continent. There's no way anybody would accept, some of the ideas that are being proposed in here, like legally separating yourself from Black women, but at the same time, being able to go align yourself up with gray boys. It makes no sense to have a Black manosphere with people who want to separate themselves from the very women that they want to come back to the table and negotiate with. That makes no sense.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid point.
Yeah, I'm here, guys.
Pretty solid.
On yeah, I just wanted to say what I was getting at. I wasn't necessarily saying like about those blog sites spreading misinformation to Black people. My point was that a lot of people like like the manosphere, they want fascism. They want they want certain Black men to be repressed. They want Black women to be repressed. I mean, it's just that's the only way I could look at it. And they, that's why they keep spreading this message and trying to stay relevant and jumping on things that has nothing to do with them and stuff like that. So that's about it for me, man. I'm great stream, Mike, Snoop Dirt Nagone.
I think that's a great point you just brought up. I think that's a great point. You've nailed a lot of that, because what you're talking about and what we see when we begin to start to get into this breakdown and we really start to look at what really a lot of our issues really are, you start to see what a lot of or some of these people actually in this sector and maybe in the other sectors as well really think. And can they really flush these ideas out? And when you start to look at that deeply, you start to see exactly what this is. Fascism and some of the other craziness that you might see coming from these people. These things need to be talked about and flushed out and seen. Where is this really going? That's what a lot of people don't want to have some of these conversations openly or truthfully because they want to obfuscate really what their what their real interests are. And is that the best for us? Because every fascist regime that we've seen in this country, literally starting from the South to the North, Bull Connor, we can go throughout the whole history where cities were run in fascist ways. Black people have not done very well amongst that. That's been the history. Are we saying that this history is going to somehow change and work better for us now? Is that what we're talking about? So anyway, great points there, Lou. Whoever just said that, great point. That was an excellent point. I think that speaks very heavy to a lot of what's going on. It really does.
Cyber Supreme.
Yeah. All right, y'all have a good one.
No, I think everything was on point, everything on spot. Very strong points to dovetail the gong. Absolutely not. That he's on point that we absolutely not are benefited by a fascist, direction. And it's I guess the people who came with the rhetoric weren't up to defend their position. So I guess that equates to a lack of credibility on their end. That's all I got to say.
Renaissance Man.
Great stream. Now I was going to say, I think it just sort of continues to show once again that, these guys really aren't the conservatives that they say they are. They're not as involved as they claim they are either. The ironic thing is, once again, like we said, this is a Black Democratic lawmaker who is bringing this bill, who brought it forward and is trying to push it through. Yet these guys are saying, Democratic Party does nothing for Black men, or they're on the ride, this and that. And I'm like, on top of that, like I said, I pointed out earlier in the stream, the right's general consensus too is some of this stuff is going to be, frankly, if you weren't married and you had a child with a woman, the right, a lot of these people are just going to say, hey, it's your fault. They believe in being married before you have kids, and this is the result, and they just want to move on, which is, I think, kind of where you got the status quo from. So the idea of even going and doing this, putting this verification in place, once again speaks to why it's coming out of a Democrat, and why it's more of a has more of a liberal bend to it, in the sense of like I said, if you're a conservative, you're on the right, their arguments can be you shouldn't be in this situation to begin with because you should be married. So I think it just once again exposes sort of how they're all over the place in their hypocrisy of what their politics really are. So that's all I got.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible and hit that